studs, how's it hanging? So I thought I'd check in with you guys a little bit because I have been seeing in the media a lot lately about the Australia gay vote. If you don't know about the gay vote, I'll give you a little snippet of information. I will put a link for the John Oliver video on explaining the poll ballot vote below in the description, so you can check that out down there, which will better explain exactly what process they went through just to go through and do a vote in Australia on whether or not that they thought gay marriage should be legal. But all of the popular news reports and things of that nature are raving that it's an absolute win for the gay community. NPR calls it a resounding yes. It's also said overwhelming by CNN and BBC. And the New York Times calls it a solid majority vote. Of the Australian registered voters that did vote, the vote went over 61.6% to 38.4%. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull says, "We asked them for their opinion and they gave it to us. It was unequivocal. It is overwhelming. It is our job now to get on with it. It is fair. The people have voted yes for marriage equality, and now it is our job to deliver it." For me, it's less of a resounding yes, Queen, and more of a maybe. More than 12.7 million people did return their ballots, stating whether or not they thought Australia should have gay marriage. That 12.7 million only makes up 79.5%, or approximately 80% of the entire population. So if we go ahead and do a little bit of that math here, 80% of the population voted, and 61.6% of them said that they believed gay marriage should be legal. Oh, screwed that up. This is why you should stay in school, kids. 6. That means overall, 49% of the population voted yes. So you only got about 50% of the population agreeing that they would like to legalize gay marriage. In a speech, former Prime Minister Tony Abbott delivered to the New York Anti-Gay Alliance Defending Freedom group, he claimed that a 40% no vote would be a moral victory. So The Guardian did us a favor and broke it down for us on exactly who turned out to vote. You've got voting based on percentage that voted yes by electorate, like the actual vote that they gave. Then the amount of people that turned out, which as you can see is very prominent on the outer coast. And the same goes for the overall vote. Do us gay people just like water? Is there a reason that we tend to flock towards the coastal areas? Which it seems funny to me that the least voted, or the most that voted no, were in the Midwest of the country. You've got an entire country surrounded by water and only the Midwest holding you back. Hashtag US. Oh wait, no, this is Australia. I guess maybe all of the Mike Pences get together and have a convention and talk about what part of the country they're going to live in and ruin in every single country. It seems like no matter where you go, no one wants to be considered like they're from the Middle East. You might be better off coming from Middle Earth nowadays. I was doing some research on the Middle East recently, actually, and I came across some interesting information because we have this concept of Muslims, which I don't agree with, but as Americans, we have a concept of Muslims and Islam, which is different than what's actually true. It was brought to my attention in an article, even though several Muslims and Islamic states ban or practice the death penalty or some form of punishment for being gay, the ones that don't are the ones that weren't inhabited by colonial British. It seems like it was very culturally based that we hate homosexuality.
I'm glad you're with me.
You might be better off as a hobbit. So what do? Are we supposed to be excited? Is this a big step forward? I'd wager that if you went out and put a vote like this towards Indiana, you would get mostly the same response, about a 50-50. So it seems a little premature to get excited when just 2 years ago, our now vice president and then governor of Indiana enacted the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. If you're not familiar with the RFRA, it's simply business owners have the right to use their religious beliefs as a legal defense, which means they could deny people service or services based on what their religion taught. And Mike Pence enacted this despite a $250 million economic backlash to Indiana from people pulling out and people who did support the LGBTQ community withdrawing from the state of Indiana because of their Religious Freedoms Act. People getting to say that they won't serve a business or do some kind of business because someone's gay is like going on Amazon and them telling you that they're only going to hand out postcards with the Four Noble Truths on them or the sutras because they're only Buddhists now. And maybe you're thinking, well, Amazon, that's a huge company. They're allowed to diversify their products more or decide more what they do with them versus a small company. But if a small company in Indiana were to start up and become a big company that shipped out to other places in other states, would they be allowed to say, don't send them fags the Christmas special 16 savory meat and cheese log collection, because you know what they'll do with them? FYI, you should not send any of those meat monstrosities out to the homos. Those are only for awkward Uncle Chuck to eat. You're forced to awkwardly sit at Christmas dinner and listen to the dryness and his mouth breathing and that little tiny piece of cracker that just hangs on the side and it goes out and comes back in every time that he breathes, but never quite making it inside his dirty, filthy mouth until it comes down his beard and it hangs there. And then promptly, as soon as everyone leaves, they take that entire tray of meat and cheese and shove it right in the trash of whence it came. So don't bother. It's a waste. But back to my point in hand, just because the society agrees with it doesn't necessarily mean that the government can follow through or will follow through with anything. Nobody drives that point home more efficiently than New Zealand pastor Logan Robertson. Here's Mr. Robertson's opinion on a local woman who is running for office.
I don't vote, I don't let my wife vote, I don't even believe in women voting, and I sure want to be voting for that new Labour lady. What's her name? Jacinda. Is that her name? I don't care what her name is. But you know, that lady, I guess is she more of a lady than the Helen Clark or whatever? I don't know. But I don't know. I still don't know if there was a man or a lady. Helen Clark, our last female prime minister. But you know, the Bible actually says that it's a curse for a nation to have a woman ruling over them. It's a curse. Don't vote for Jacinda. You know, she needs to shut up. You know, go home, get in the kitchen where women belong, and bake a cake for her boyfriend. That's where she needs to be.
Then this pastor goes on to tell in a later sermon exactly how he feels about homosexuality. He even has now moved to Australia since the vote and set up a church so that he can help Australia. Actually, he originally was getting away from the fact that New Zealand even has gay marriage as an option, which is part of what he mentions in his sermons, which will be linked below, because I have to give credit where credit is due, and only because of that. We're going to take a little journey together.
But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together.
I've listened to several of these, and it's funny that there's always a child crying like they just really don't want to hear this.
So you'd rather, you know, the Sodomites win, or, you know, what? What am I just never going to mention in queers? But that's the mentality of Christians today. That they'd rather side with the queers, they'd rather side with the homos on anything and everything, rather than standing up for a man of God that's going to preach about them and preach against them and say that every homo would be put to death in the world. You know, they'd save all the child molestation, they'd save kids getting raped and people getting raped, and if I became Prime Minister, that's what would happen. You know, that'd be like the first thing I put in place. You know, all homos executed. You got, you know, you can either go to Australia or... They're already over the board. In Australia, homos can't even get married, but they can here. Someone actually emailed me the other day, you know, what's your view on homo marriage? And I was like, my view on homo marriage is that the Bible never mentions it. So I'm not against them getting married as long as a bullet goes through their head the moment they kiss.
I'm going to pause it right there for a second. If you don't have an Australian accent, it's kind of 100% hard to understand what he says. But what he says is, I don't care about their marriage because they don't say anything about marriage in the Bible. But the second that they kiss, I want a bullet put through their head. This is the sort of thing that people that don't actually step up and do anything or make any change or talk to their officials, this is the sort of thing that gets to pass. This guy actually was stopped in Australia in his travels from New Zealand because of his hate speech, but they said that no crime was actually committed. He wasn't actually intimidating or threatening anyone. He was just giving free speech, which shows how Australia still currently feels about things on a federal or governmental level by investigating this man and letting him into the country. So we need to give all the help that we can. Australia's got a long way to go.
Because that's what it talks about. Not homo marriage, but homo death. There's no such thing as homo marriage, and it's not even marriage anyway. But that's what should happen. But we've got Christians that would rather side with them, side with their cute little bad cousin or brother or whoever it is, than with Christians. That actually
Cute little fag cousin or brother or whoever it is, they'd rather side with their family and the people that they care about than the book that was written 2,000 years ago that doesn't necessarily mean anything to anyone unless you make it so. Yeah, this guy's a genius. Only homo death. I think that's going to wrap it up for me. My wife should be home any minute. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, make sure you give it a subscribe if you enjoyed. Comments in the comment section below on what you think we need to be doing, on any changes that we could be making, how we could communicate with our government, because I think people in Indiana have kind of forgotten about the Religious Freedoms Act, and I wish that we wouldn't. Again, Indiana's got a long way to go, so I hope we get there. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. As always, stay studly. Thanks for messing up my scene, buddy.